Tonight, when the sun finally goes down, you're probably going to do something totally automatic. You'll walk into a room, flip a switch, light floods in, and honestly, you won't even think twice about it. But welcome to this explainer, because we are going to completely reframe your relationship with the dark. You see, the way we experience the night today, it's actually a massive historical anomaly. Think about this for a second. For 99.9% of human history, that switch you just flipped literally didn't exist. For over 300,000 years, every single one of your ancestors spent roughly half of their entire lives in near total darkness. I mean, they didn't even have candles for most of that time. So our modern night is really just defined by pure convenience, right? Just a quick flick of a switch to banish the dark. But the ancient night? Wow, that was a totally different story. Imagine just a pitch black sky, a huge expanse of stars, and maybe, just maybe, whatever tiny fire they could manage to keep alive. Because before fire, when the sun went down, you stopped moving. Period. Moving around at night meant you literally became food. Our eyes were just absolutely terrible compared to the very real, visceral danger of predators out there, like leopards and hyenas that were actively hunting us. But then came the ultimate turning point, the pivot of fire. Just imagine this 30-foot circle of campfire light. It completely changed the evolutionary equation basically overnight. Inside that circle, you were safe. Predators wouldn't come near it. Outside of it, well, you died. This magical barrier fundamentally transformed us from the hunted prey into the top predators. But even more importantly than that, it handed humanity this unprecedented gift: extra time. It suddenly added 2 to 4 completely usable hours to every single day. Okay, let's dive into this, because what did our ancestors actually do with those extra hours? The campfire wasn't just, a prehistoric heater or a predator shield. It became something much, much more profound. It was the original classroom. This was the exact birthplace of abstract thought, of deep connection, and human culture itself. It was literally the incubator of human imagination. To really wrap our heads around why this is so huge, we have to look at the data. Back in 2014, an anthropologist named Polly Weisner studied the Kalahari Bushmen to see exactly how daylight and darkness changed the way humans interact, and the results are wild. During the daytime, a massive 80% of all conversations were strictly practical. Stuff like, who's hunting where today? Or which plants are actually ready to eat? Daylight hours were highly logistical, they were stressful, and they were entirely focused on the hard work of survival. Now, what's really interesting about this is what happened the exact moment the sun went down. Once people gathered around the safety of the fire, boom, 81% of those conversations completely transformed into stories and myths. All those stressful daytime logistics, they completely vanished. Fire fundamentally shifted our communication into storytelling. And that brings us to this incredibly beautiful realization. The campfire was the original theater, the original classroom, and the original church. Sharing stories around those dancing flames allowed early humans to bond in ways that absolutely no other species on Earth could. It fostered this amazing capacity to think way beyond the immediate present, to start imagining things that didn't even exist yet, and to lay down the cultural foundations of civilization itself. The campfire was, for all intents and purposes, our very first real school. But hey, the ancient night wasn't just about the stories being told in the warm glow of the fire. There's actually a completely different, almost hidden side to this entire story. We're talking about a forgotten biological rhythm, a completely different way of sleeping that we, as a modern society, have entirely lost. Right, so in 2001, historian Roger E. Eckert uncovered this wild, forgotten pattern that basically every human on the planet followed right up until the industrial age. Here's how it worked. First, you'd sleep for about 4 hours. Then, you'd have this period of being wide awake for 1 to 2 hours, a time they called the watch. And after that, a second sleep for another 4 hours. And guys, this wasn't insomnia. This 2-sleep cycle was completely normal. It was just how humans slept. So you're probably wondering, what exactly did people do during these mysterious waking hours in the pitch black? Well, the historical records show they did practically everything. People conceived children. In fact, there was a 16th century doctor who highly recommended this window as the absolute optimal time. They would lie in bed and interpret their dreams while they were still super fresh in their minds. They even got up and visited neighbors. It was this culturally vibrant time completely dedicated to quiet reflection and study, all while the rest of the world outside was perfectly still. Now, for centuries, translators looking back at old texts simply couldn't comprehend this. They kind of just wrote it off as a weird quirk. But then modern medical science finally caught up. In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware over at the National Institute of Mental Health ran this absolutely fascinating darkness experiment. For a whole month, he removed all artificial light from his subjects' lives. He essentially gave them 14 hours of pure darkness every single night, exactly like our ancestors experienced before fire extended our evenings. And here is the incredible biological twist to all of this. Without a single person suggesting it to them, every single participant naturally reverted right back to that ancient 2-sleep cycle. And even more amazing than that, Weir found that during the watch, that middle of the night waking period, their brains were producing highly elevated levels of prolactin. That is the exact same hormone your brain releases during deep, deep meditation. It completely proved that this awake period wasn't some annoying gap in sleep, it was a deeply peaceful, meditative state of human consciousness. Sadly, this biological harmony was incredibly fragile. The tragic erasure of the night actually still lives on in our language today. Take the origin of the word curfew, for example. It comes from the French phrase couvre-feu, which literally translates to cover fire. You see, for most of our history, the night was still a time of intense vulnerability and fear. A curfew bell signaled mandatory darkness. The night was seen as belonging to criminals or the supernatural. Honestly, just walking outside without a lantern was highly suspicious and in a lot of places, flat out illegal. Light was heavily restricted. Of course, humans naturally hate feeling vulnerable, so we basically waged a full-on war against the dark. In the 1600s, Paris installed the very first street lamps to cut down on nighttime crime. Then the 1800s brought us the much brighter glow of gas lamps. And then, the real game changer? In 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. In just a few short generations, we completely erased 300,000 years of deeply ingrained human biological habit. We conquered the dark. So the crucial point is, our biology really hasn't caught up with our technology yet. Today, we effectively live under what you could call the 11 p.m. sun. Think about it. When you're scrolling on your screens late at night, that blue light is quite literally tricking your brain into thinking it's still the middle of the day. It heavily delays your brain's release of melatonin, the hormone that actually regulates your sleep. Your body simply cannot tell the difference between a bright light bulb and the actual sun, and because of that, it totally fragments our sleep. But hey, the truly amazing thing here is that our ancient programming is really just lying dormant inside us. Yes, modern artificial light deeply disrupts our circadian rhythms, for sure. But researchers have found that taking just one single week to go camping, completely removing yourself from all artificial light, is enough to reset a person's melatonin cycle by 2 whole hours. Our bodies are practically begging to return to their natural ancient programming whenever we give them the chance. When we finally banished the dark, we really thought it was just progress, didn't we? We thought, great, we've gained all these extra hours for work and entertainment. But the hard truth is, we didn't just change our sleep schedules. We lost an entire state of consciousness. We traded our oldest classroom, that ancient campfire where human storytelling and imagination were literally born, and we traded those profoundly peaceful, reflective hours of the watch, all for mere convenience. And the wildest part is most of us never even knew it was gone. Which leaves us with this final, really stark question to consider. The next time you find yourself tossing and turning in the dead of the night, staring at the ceiling, I want you to ask yourself, what if waking up at 2 a.m. isn't actually a disorder at all? What if it's just your body remembering exactly what it was built to do?